So let's continue with another one, incredible speaker, Vanessa. Vanessa is really great, like sourcer and a trainer for other sourcers. I follow her personally for a long time and really excited to have you here, Vanessa. So yeah, it's your time and your stage.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. Do you mind if I just quickly share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fantastic. Let me do that. Let me move everyone out the way. Brilliant. So just give me a thumbs up in the chat. I'm going to keep the chat open. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you can see my presentation. Thanks, Julian. Look at that. I like that. Lots of enthusiasm. Before I get started, I just want to say thanks and a shout out to the two ladies who presented before me, Mary and Christina. Great presentations. I really enjoyed them. Thank you so much. Excellent. So where do we actually get started here? And I haven't been able to narrow it down to just one fuck up in my life, to be honest. I'm sharing 3 with you. So I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't know if it's because I'm older or I really appreciate being asked to speak here, because normally I get asked to speak and I think this is my 6th or 7th either guest podcast experience. I was up at 6 a.m. to do a podcast to Australia this morning, but this one really made me think. The other ones, I know what I talk about. I know my space. I've got the deck in place. This one really made me think. So thank you for that. And as mentioned, I'm going to share my 3 fuck-ups with you. Now, before I do that, I quickly want to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, there's lots of new names and faces on this call. Lots of pretty faces, I must add, except for Julian. He's like spoiling my view a bit, but that's all right. Guys, I'm a global talent sourcing trainer. I train teams all over the world. As I say, often up early and training late at night. I think I finished a podcast in the US last night at about 8:30, and then 6 o'clock I started again on a podcast as a guest this morning. But I love it. I love my global footprint. I love making friends all over the world, like Julian, who we banter. I've presented for him all the time. Never met him in real life, but it's going to happen in October. We are both presenting at Sourcing Summit. So I'm really excited about that. So that's in Amsterdam. I still work as a freelance sourcer or recruiter, depending on what people are looking for. So I feel your guys' pain. I know what it's like when you can't find the people, you don't get a response. It's frustrating. You get disheartened. And also that helps me to improve my training. So earlier, I put into the chat a link for my free training. I want to pop it in again. Guys, go and do it. It's for free. I presented at so many conferences during COVID. I built an academy this year, January, February, March. It was very difficult staying away from events like this. But I also recorded a lot of the presentations I presented during COVID, and they are there for free. So you can go and play with them. At the moment, I'm back based in Johannesburg in South Africa, where I'm going to be for the next 2 months before we move down to the coast. And my superpower is my ADHD, or ADD in high definition. So I know there's a lot of people in this industry that do battle with the attention side of things. And I talk about it a lot. So if you ever need any guidance or just someone to talk to about this space, give me a shout. Now, side hustles, you've got to have some of these, folks. As mentioned, I do a lot of keynote speaking. It has been a bit of a quieter year this year, but mainly because we're in the middle of moving and my business took a new direction and I needed to focus a little bit more. So as I say, 2nd week of October, I'm going to be in Amsterdam. If any of you are going to be at Sourcing Summit, come and join me. I've got a discount code. I'm quickly putting it into the chat. There it is. That's going to give you a discount on the ticket. Please, if you're there, come and say hello. When I'm not working, I like to take photos. I'm often in the South African bushvelds or on the beach, and I enjoy taking photos. Now, to be honest with you guys, I stand here in front of you and just want to say to you that my career hasn't always been this plain sailing. I have made many fuck-ups in my career. I started off well. I had a little bit of a bumpy middle bit, and now things are back on track. So I just want to share with you that things don't always have to be plain sailing. This was my first proper job ever. This was actually taken in London. I was a school teacher. I taught for 7 years, and it was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. But then when I hit my 30s, I actually decided I'm actually tired of responsibility. I'm tired of having bills to pay. I'm going to go and live in Thailand. And I did that. I went to go live in Thailand for 2 years. I had dreadlocks. I worked as a scuba diving instructor, and I trained people to scuba dive. I mean, my family was horrified. They were like, what are you doing? You were a successful teacher. You ended up being almost like a head teacher, and now you're a beach bum. I was working behind a bar at night, and yeah, I agree. This is way cooler. And I really enjoyed it. And I needed to do this because it gave me a really good understanding of people. So where I am now working in talent, if you can read someone's behavior at 30 meters below the sea, when you don't know what they're going to do, they're going to maybe bolt to the surface, they're going to do something stupid, they're going to put their hand in a shark's mouth, whatever it is, you need to be able to anticipate that. So all of the jobs that I've done have been very people orientated and focused. Then I moved back to South Africa and I decided, let me try and be an adult again. And I went into full-time employment. I'm now kind of in the mid-30s of my life. I did 2 years in agency. Thank goodness I cracked it because I had to borrow clothes from my mom to go to this interview. That's why my hair's so short there, is because I had to cut my dreadlocks off. So seriously, suddenly I arrived back. I had no money. I was in my mid-30s. I had to move back in with my parents. I mean, it was devastating for all of us at the time. I literally didn't have a cent to my name, but I'd had the most incredible 2 years. I'd ended up in Thailand, in Southeast Asia, I lived in East Africa, I lived on Zanzibar. It was incredible. So I did that for 2 years, and then I was headhunted, and I worked with this motley crew as the head of talent acquisition for almost 10 years. And this is where I really had to learn to be a good sourcer of talent. So again, you kind of see my career coming back onto the tracks, right? So just to show you that it doesn't matter what you want to do at what stage of your life, there's always going to be a reason for why you did it. And everything I've done has led me to the point now where I have got a British passport. It's easy for me to travel. I'm happy to travel anywhere to deliver training, to deliver keynotes. And I do like to think that I'm good with people. So I want to just quickly share my sourcing philosophy with you, because these 3 things are very close to my heart. They're really important for all of your recruiters out there. And then I'm getting onto my fuck ups. Trust me, if you don't think that my life has been a bit of a fuck up, because it's a bit all over the place, let's face it. 3 things you guys need to master to be really good at this job. Guys, build your brand. The reason why Eugenia has reached out to me to be presenting at this conference tonight is because of my brand. We've never met each other. I'm this nobody from South Africa. I grew up in the sleepy fishing village of Durban, right? So what makes me different is because I have a brand and I stand out online, and you've got to do the same. The second thing to be a successful recruiter or talent sourcer is please stop looking where everybody else is looking. Learn how to source, learn how to write a Boolean search string, learn how to X-ray. Stop only looking on LinkedIn and your local job boards, because you've got the whole internet at your fingertips. Even if you find someone on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is, doesn't mean you have to add them to your network. Find an email address and send them an email. Okay, it's much quicker, and you are going to get a much higher response rate than an in-mail, which, let's face it, is about as useful as a chocolate teapot these days. In-mails are rubbish. Now, the third thing is your messaging. When you're reaching out to candidates, don't use AI, don't use ChatGPT unless you make it sound like yourself. Trust your English, trust your personality, and trust the story that you are telling, okay? So when you are reaching out to candidates, be a human being, understand who you're talking to, and personalize it so that you are getting the person's attention. And if you can do these 3 things, you're going to smash it. You're going to be really, really successful. My Facebook group, if you want to join our community of talent sources, here it is. Go and sign up. Be really great to see you guys there. If someone wants to drop that into the chat for me, that is awesome. And now I'm going to share with you my top 3 fuck-ups. Okay. Now they all have a common theme. I'm not going to tell you guys what the theme is because you look like quite an intelligent bunch. Well, most of you anyway. No, I'm kidding. You are going to tell me what I did wrong in these 3 fuck-ups. So I haven't got fancy gifts or anything like that because I'm not cool. I'm too old for that kind of stuff, like the 2 ladies who presented before me. So I'm just using graphics. And I'm going to tell you about one I have had. If I can identify 3 major fuck-ups in my career, these are the ones that I'm sharing with you. So the first one that I'm sharing with you was, it was when I was at that big company. I showed you the photo with all of the people. I was the head of talent acquisition for 10 years. They decided during those 10 years, they were going to open up a recruitment company. And they wanted me to head up the recruitment company. So my role changed. Here I was, head of talent acquisition. I was recruiting for one company. Now what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to hire a team. So I had staff. They wanted me to oversee what was happening when they were taking on third-party clients. They were looking for candidates while I was still recruiting internally. Now, this sounds normal, doesn't it? It's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a manager. You're supposed to have staff reporting into you. You're supposed to climb the corporate ladder. Worst decision of my life, okay? Completely the worst decision. I sat down and I thought long and hard about this decision. I even said to my boss at the time, I need some time with this. Like, give me a week. I want to think about it. Do I want to manage people? Do I want to actually care about other clients? Do I want to worry about whether people in my team are performing or not? Or do I just want to focus on bringing you the best people into this organization? And everyone I spoke to said to me, Vanessa, you're at that age now. You're going to be a manager. Your next step is to manage people. You can't just keep being this like lone ranger and doing whatever you want. And I'm like, maybe you're right, maybe not. And my gut said to me, don't do it. Okay. I didn't listen. So I took on the role, built a team around me. And then I had a massive issue because the people that were recruiting for me and my team, I couldn't, and this is my issue, I couldn't actually break down the difference between somebody who was in my team and somebody who was working for me. Were they going to be an employee or were they going to be my friend? Because what I couldn't actually differentiate between is when it was month end, and as you all know, this is on the last day of the month. I'm sure you've all been rushing and trying to get signatures and close things off. That's when you got to work hard, right? In recruitment. That's when the hours become long. That's when you got to work on weekends. And I didn't understand why the people on my team weren't as dedicated to hitting their targets and working on weekends in order for us to be a successful business. And I personally battled with that. And I quickly realized that actually I'm probably the world's worst manager. I'm not equipped to manage people because I expect people to work the same way that I do. And I'm a completely over-functioning ADHD individual. So I can do so much more in an 8, 9, 10, 11-hour day that I work than what most people can do because that's the way my brain works. I know we shouldn't multitask, but I can get 8 things done at once. And I can get them done properly. And I've proven that. So when other people are slower, they don't have the same attitude towards looking after their clients. They don't look after their candidates. I see that they're ghosting candidates. I get really, really upset because at the end of the day, that's my brand and that's my reputation on the line. And that, to be honest with you, was the biggest fucker because I didn't actually sit back and think about myself and what I wanted to do. I was very happy sourcing. I was teaching myself how to source better. I was really perfecting my reach out to candidates. I was building a community. It was a Microsoft consulting company. I was speaking at Microsoft events. I was heading in that direction and I got pulled back into basically day-to-day manual operational recruitment, which really didn't interest me at all. So that was the first thing. And basically what I did was I didn't trust my gut. And I did what society said I should do. I was close to my 40s. I needed to climb the corporate ladder. I needed to manage people. I needed to take on responsibility. They gave me shares in the business. They were very generous. And literally within 6 months, I was like, I resigned. I handed in my resignation to my boss and he said, what are you doing, Vanessa? And I said, I can't do this. I can't run this company. I can't manage these people. I'm miserable. And at that stage, I think I decided I was going back to being a teacher. And he said, no, what's changed in you? And straight away, what he did is he put a manager in charge of that other business. And he let me go back to working in internal TA. And it was difficult because I didn't want to see it as like I'd failed or I hadn't followed the traditional career path. But one thing that I did learn from there was I've never followed, that's why I shared my career with you. I've never had a typical path in anything in life. I know that I'm different to a lot of people. And what I've realized is that being a manager is just not for me. I have now solely focused, and I've decided I'm going to be true to myself and position myself as a subject matter expert in the talent sourcing space, and that's all I want to be. I'm quite happy being a solopreneur. People approach me weekly. Van, can I work with you? I want to be one of your trainers. Can I learn from you? And I'm just like, you know what? I know the way that I need to work, and that's what I've decided I'm going to be true to. I just want to look at a couple of questions before I move on to my second fuck up. So difficult to find out whether leadership is something for you until you've done it or not. Absolutely, Julian. And by the time that you're in that position and you've got people reporting into you, it's often too late, right? And Angie says, I believe you always want more results than your team. You do, because you've got an invested interest. And it's not just, the financial invested interest that you have. It's you want to succeed, and you want to see the company do well. And again, it's your brand on the line. So, fuck up number 2. Right. I then decided that the time had come. I am going to go on my own. This was about 4.5 years ago. And I started my business, The Talent Hunter. And so I have now decided I'm going to go and I'm going to train people how to source talent, because all the recruiters that I know, and I know this because of the fuck up of managing people, and I saw how those recruiters recruited. And by then, because I hadn't been surrounded by other recruiters, learning bad habits, becoming tied down to job boards, I had actually learned how to talent source. And I looked at the recruiters still looking at job boards and LinkedIn, and I thought, oh my God, there is such a gap in the market. I didn't realize it was a global gap. I actually thought it was a South African gap. And I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to start my own business. That, and the fact that the company also sold to a corporate, and I know I wouldn't have lasted long in a corporate, I decided now is the time. And what happened was, as a talent sourcing trainer, is I went to go and meet with a company. And we've pretty much got 2 very large agencies in South Africa that have like different companies in them, different types of recruitment agencies. And I had just started in my business, and I went to have a meeting with them. There was a couple of important people in the meeting, and they said to me, we are going to put our trainers into the meeting, into your training. And I was like, okay. So I said to them, that's quite weird. Why would you do that? I said, I'm not training your trainers to source. I'm training your recruitment consultants. I'm training your talent sources. And they said, no, we are putting our trainers in so that when new people start, they can assist them with your training. Because now this was still in-person training. It wasn't online. It couldn't be recorded or anything. And this didn't sit right with me. And I was like, it's such a big company. It's such a good opportunity. I was already a little bit irritated because my training then was 3 days, and they asked me to do 3 days worth of training in a day. And I was like, what are you guys smoking? How am I going to put 3 days of training into 1 day? I'm going to lose everyone. This is not going to work. And there were lots of signs that were going through this. They then fought with me on my rates. They then told me there would be X number of people in the training, and there were X number of people in the training plus 10 more. And what I subsequently learned after that training, when everything said to me is, don't do it, walk away. You don't need the money that badly. I know you're just starting out, but this doesn't sound right. Is that on the first of the month, whenever someone new joined that company, I suddenly got 5, 6, 7 new LinkedIn invitations, people asking me to connect with them on Facebook, etc., etc. And they all came from that company. So what the trainers had done in those teams that I had trained is they had taken my training, they repeated it because I obviously chatted to people who had been through it. They took my training, they repackaged it and rebranded it as their own, and they told everyone who joined to follow me because of the content that I was posting. And that for me was a big warning. That was like, and that's also why it's taken me 4 years to put my training online, because that's my IP, that's my business. So there's certain things I'm happy to give away for free, but there's certain things that, I need to make money. I live with 2 boys. They eat a lot. I mean, they expect to eat 3 meals a day. I mean, what's that about? So you've got to protect your business. You've got to protect what you are doing. And again, I didn't listen to my gut. The third fuck up over here. So now I'm about 2 or 3 years into my business. Things are going swimmingly. I'm doing really well. and I get hired as a freelancer, because now obviously I'm working as a freelancer by a company in Germany, actually, no offense, Julian, a German company. And they asked me to do a talent sourcing project for them. And I had done a couple of talent sourcing projects, and I realized that it's all about the brief. And again, you know, it wasn't during the days where everything was recorded, but what I would do is I would take like an intake meeting with the client, I'd write down all of the points, and I would send it off to them. And before I actually started the sourcing project, I'd either wait for an email back to say, yes, that's all the points, or remove this, or add this in, and I didn't actually do that. It was a big project. It was like 20 hours. It was a good couple of euros per hour. And I went off to go and source. So I did that. It took me a week. Long time. Actually, probably I normally end up putting in more hours because I get really involved in the search. And when I went and submitted my results to the company that I had been sourcing for, they came back and they said, we can't accept it because a lot of the candidates that you have put forward are actually working as consultants. And I said, but hold on, that was never a requirement. I sent the requirement back to you. But because I had never got approval on the requirements that I had sent to them, and they had never agreed to it, we now got into a dispute because I was never told you cannot look at consultants because this is a permanent job. We want to take someone who is not in a consulting, contracting, gig kind of situation because we only want someone to move someone from a permanent position. I didn't really understand it. Anyways, and they never paid me. And that for me was a big lesson because I never actually I wasn't patient enough to I was so excited to start on the sourcing project. It was an exciting one. And I didn't wait. I didn't listen long enough to hear back from them to say yes or no. And that was a big mistake. And now I hold off. I don't start anything. I wait for people to pay before I put them into the training on my online academy. All of these things, because you never know what the future is going to hold. So I'm going to ask you guys, and I want to have a look in the chat over here. What's the theme? Every single time of these fuck ups were things that I think I could have, and I'm glad I did them because I think we learn from our fuck ups. We move on from our fuck ups. We really do. But what was the one thing that I should have done in every situation? Right in one, listen to my gut. You're right. Always listen to your gut, 100%. And that is, I didn't listen to my gut. And the second thing, which no one's come up with, is I didn't ask enough questions. If I had asked more questions about the type of manager they were looking for, what did they expect from me? How big was the team going to be? And the second situation is, why are the trainers in there? I don't understand. What are you going to do with my material if the trainers are there? They're not sourcing. I should have asked that question again. And in the third instance, I should have said in one of my questions, why don't you want to look at consultants? But by then it was too late. So again, don't be too nervous to ask questions. Don't think it's not my place. I'm just a junior. Ask questions, because if you don't ask questions, you get that funny feeling in your gut. And then what do you listen to? So guys, that's it from me. It's my contact details. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to grow my network there. I'm all over the place. Connect with me wherever you want. And I'm happy to open up for questions. Eugenia, you're on mute, my friend. I don't want to miss what you say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, thank you very much for sharing your fuck ups. I think I experienced actually like all of them in similar way, but for me, like for recruitment trainer myself, the second one sounds like really similar. I actually had like very similar story. I just like I was going to launch a sourcing course and I posted a program of it. But that time I didn't have time and I didn't launch it. And 1 year later, I recognized that another person took it and for 1 year was making money. And
oh my word.
Yeah, I just was thinking like, I created it and someone taking money for 1 year. So maybe it's my turn finally to use it and launch this course. But
that's terrible. And that's why you got to be so careful about what you share, because you never know if what are people's motives out there. Like, I can see most of you like being quite shocked that people would do this. But like, my biggest fear was putting my training online. Is someone going to sit there and record it and then share it with their friends? You know, you always think about the worst case scenario, because you can't just assume that all human beings are kind and loving and, you know, happy and all of those things. I'm just going to answer the question quickly in the chat. But if you guys have got any other questions, I'm here. Or else I know Julian's going to have a winning presentation tonight.
Let's see. But I have a question. Have you ever worked with that German client again?
I haven't, and it's quite awkward because I have a feeling that they might be in Amsterdam in October.
Okay. Very curious to see who they are. But
Well, I whispered in your ear after a drink. Oh, funny. Okay, another question. Eugenia, do you want to ask me quickly? I'm so used to answering stuff on Zoom because I train on it all day, every day. So I feel like I'm taking over. So you go for it.
Yeah, no, so yeah, you can do it. So I really love the question in chat from Anna. Like, how did you build your network client pipeline when you just started with freelancing?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been building my network forever. So it's something that I consciously do every single day. And I really try and push myself to post 3 times a week on LinkedIn. So I had a network before I started freelancing, which makes my life a hell of a lot easier. So it's easier to freelance when people are approaching you because they know what you do and they know where you've positioned yourself. But to be honest with you, if you're thinking of starting freelancing and you are building that network, just be more active, be consistent, get those 3 posts out every single week.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I'm actually have like a course for recruiters where we learning how to build networking. And I always say, like, if you want to start your like own project or you want to be successful, you need to build your network, because from my experience in IT industry, like referrals are the best way to get clients.
100%. Word of mouth is amazing.
Cool. And another question from Ksenia: have you ever experienced an imposter syndrome?
Every day. Every single day. So thank you for the question. Yes. I think it gets easier. I really and truly do. I mean, but I was thinking about it today. I mean, I'm doing a keynote in Amsterdam and I'm nervous. I really and truly am nervous. I was nervous before I presented tonight. I think it's healthy to be nervous. It's because you never know what to expect, and never take anything for granted. So imposter syndrome is real. It's definitely a thing. I think as you get a little bit older, ladies, you get into your mid-40s, you don't really give a shit as much about what other people think about you. You'll get there. Life becomes a little bit easier because of that. But yeah, you will have imposter syndrome. I think it's a very, very common thing.
Yeah, so maybe like just to approach it as something normal, right? Just
for sure. Are there any more?
I think just a lot of thank you to you. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I think we just missed my question. I was actually yeah, my name is Julia. So I was asking, like, what is your favorite tool for sourcing, or maybe some tool which you used and you can recommend, because you said like the emails, they're not working, so probably a Recruiter Lite is not so good tool.
No, not a massive fan of paying for the Blue Devil or LinkedIn, but that's a whole nother presentation, and Julian's needs to come and share his pearls of wisdom with us. To be honest with you, it's hard to answer that. What is my favorite sourcing tool? Because it all depends on what I'm doing. So there's lots of Chrome extensions out there. If you don't want to send an email and you want to use a Chrome extension to reveal someone's email address, that's something that I use frequently. There's also tools that you can run email campaigns out of. So Sourcewell is one of those tools where you can, kind of put your candidates into these campaigns. So you're thinking like a marketer and you drip feeding them information. So there's lots of different tools. But for me, the best sourcing tool, my brain and my personality, because that's going to give you the human to human connection.
Thanks.
Yeah, I also
If-
actually love your advice not to use like ChatGPT to generate messages. That's same what I'm telling
Use
all
it
the
to
time.
help you, but not to the final product.
Yeah, I can say even when I write posts on LinkedIn, I noticed that if I correct it too much, it get less like interactions
Yep.
and when I have mistakes, people just like people laugh when you are like yourself, it's normal to have mistakes. Everyone feels when you correct it too much. So yeah, just don't be afraid to have mistakes. That's all what we speak today. Yeah, so.
Good. Thank you so much, Eugenia, for the invite. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's date night, so I'm heading out, but I'm going to hang around and watch Julian for a bit.
Thank you for joining. Yeah, and I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, Julian. Julian is really great talent search expert